Hey, folks, welcome back to the podcast. I'm Cliff Schechter here with John Aravosis. This is Unprecedented, and we are currently in what is, at this point, the United States of America. We hope it will be next week, too. Joining us is, you may have heard of her. Her name is Mary Trump. Mary, hi.
Hi, guys.
I was going to give a big intro, but I really don't think like any intro is like what could I do that people wouldn't know? And if they don't know who you are, I don't think they're watching.
Like Sharon, Lady Gaga.
Thank you for being back with us again.
God. Oh, it's good to be here. I wish the circumstances are better than they were
last time. Yeah.
So that's something.
True.
This much better, maybe. We'll see. I know I was really happy a week ago, and now I'm already getting into like, is he going to steal it mode?
Well, he won't. It will be people like Barr, Pompeo, McConnell, but
right.
Yeah.
Well,
really.
Hats.
Yeah. And I think they're all. I mean, if we'll get into the broader conversation, but I think they all have their own interests, which they're serving right now using him. McConnell wants to keep his base ginned up because, I mean, it's a sad statement about what the Republican base is these days, but to keep them excited to vote, you have to tell them that an election was stolen from them. Right. And he wants them to turn out because he, majority leader is literally the only thing he cares about in his sad, pathetic life. For Barr just wants to keep Trump happy and not firing him, I think. And so he'll put out whatever memos he needs to. And, he needs to keep his guys at DOJ perhaps making evidence and things disappear. Who knows? And that kind of thing. But I feel like there's two different tracks going on here. And then I'll throw it to you, Mary. And one I feel like is very simply they're trying to the one track is Donald Trump can't admit that he lost. So he's going to do every single thing to not admit it. And they're humor him and whatever. The other track is what's going on at the Department of Defense, which I think has a lot to do with how do I get out of $900 billion or $900 million of debt? Well, I still own state secrets, and Saudi Arabia wants nuclear technology. And you have thoughts on that?
I do indeed. Thoughts on this. It's interesting that obviously this all originates with Donald's incredibly severe psychopathologies. We're where we are now because he can't accept loss. And he is, for the first time in his life, in a position where it's literally unavoidable. There's nobody, well, give me a second. Initially, right? His daddy's not going to buy his way out of it. The media is not going to do it. The banks want their money, so they're not going to let this agony be prolonged. So at first, I think the impulse of the people around him was to appease him and coddle him simply because they wanted to avoid his rage, right?
Right.
And then as time went on, with at least a segment of the population, his lies about the election being illegitimate or having been stolen gained some traction. I think other people maybe saw saw that if they keep this narrative going, this obscene false narrative going, that, as you said, maybe, they can get more out of this too, because the worst thing for them would be for Donald not to be in the Oval Office anymore. And then it kept going on, and now it's sort of taken on a life of its own. And as you said, major players, the leadership of the Republican Party, have their own agendas. They couldn't give a shit about Donald Trump. I mean, Mitch McConnell on January 7th will pretend he never met the guy.
Yep.
I think for Pompeo and Barr, it's a little bit more complicated because as much as they might revile him personally, well, I don't know if Pompeo reviles him, but Barr certainly does. I think for both of them, the goal is to create a theocratic apartheid state. And if Donald's got to be the guy at the head of it, then so be it. So it's just really, really dangerous territory we're in, not because I think the coup will succeed, but because so much damage is going to be done along the way. Donald would have done plenty on his own with more and more enablers, with the despicable complicity and silence of the Republican Party, almost to a person. You know, it's one more horrible crisis that was totally unavoidable that we're going to have to dig our way out of, with 136,000 Americans getting sick with COVID yesterday. It's
Right.
just horrific.
That to me is the worst. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, Mary, I'm assuming. Okay, I've been a little annoyed on Twitter. Well, I mean, that's sort of
Man.
that's sort of self-defining,
Oh
right?
my God, you actually just said that?
Wow.
No, I mean,
John has never not been annoyed on Twitter, and deservedly so. But
I've been
okay.
more annoyed. No, I mean, in the last couple days, a lot of people have been, honestly though, but you're kind of going there a little bit. A lot of people have been saying, "Don't worry, he's not going to get away with it," and I've kind of been going, folks. This guy's capable of anything. Now, mind you, your point is a little different. I think your point is saying he may not get away with it, but he'll certainly try. Like,
Oh, I'm not. We should be freaking out right now.
Oh, okay, good, because I am.
Yeah, and I mean, I think all of us are saying that, John. It's a matter of I don't think
Cliff,
the other
there's been a
people
lot of- there's been a
are
lot of
cooing
people-
for him. I think he's trying to do
Literally
it. He's got these-
cooing.
Right, I'm using that term now. He's got
Yes.
these lawyers, with these ludicrous briefs, that are
Jones
laughable.
Day. Jones
Why
Day.
are they all
remind
in
people.
jail? I mean, if I were a judge, I'd be charging all of them with contempt. It's insane.
No.
I would think so
Attorney
too.
General Mary Trump.
Ooh, I like
Well,
that.
hey, you know what? I'm not a lawyer, but who cares anymore? You don't.
Hey,
need to
like that's a
follow that
requirement.
Exactly. Is Amy Coney Barrett even a lawyer? I don't even know.
God.
I think she's argued like 2 cases. I mean, seriously though, it's that, right? Which is, it's not that he wouldn't do a coup, absolutely,
Right.
and he's trying. It's that it's the other things or other folks around him he would need that I don't see participating in that. I think what
Maybe,
they're
yeah.
trying to do is keep themselves out of jail and keep power. In the case of Mitch McConnell, it doesn't mean we shouldn't be scared shitless and prepare for the worst. You always do. I mean.
Yep.
And I worry about an errant judge. I worry about one of the crazy judges he's put in, frankly, Supreme Court too. Okay, I know it's a minority possible or a minor possibility, but if the Supreme Court rules against us, we're kind of screwed. you know? That's what
Look,
scares me, is just the small chance of him pulling this off scares me.
Well, that was we should be, because
Boris
that was
Natasha
always my thing. Oh,
It's my Boris and Natasha mug, which is particularly for today.
Feels about right. Maybe we should all just speak in Russian accents. Get used to it.
I tell you. Hey,
I'm sorry, you were saying, Mary. Yeah.
Well, that was the problem in 2016. The fact that even though, he was a horrible candidate, the fact that he had a 0.001% chance of winning was too much of a chance.
Right.
So, no, we should be very concerned. I just said that I don't think it's the likeliest possibility,
right.
but the fact that it's a possibility, nobody should be complacent. And,
Right.
I think for some people, maybe the calculation they're making is we don't want people to think we're overstating it, so they tune out or get so freaked out that they disengage. And I get that. You don't want to be seen
Right.
as of being alarmist, because it's so difficult for people to wrap their heads around the possibility that the greatest democracy in history has a chance of not surviving the worst, weakest, most pathetic piece of garbage in the history of humanity.
How do you really feel?
Am I being too subtle? And then there's, I'm not so worried about the Supreme Court because, one, I don't think it's going to get there for various reasons, and secondly, it's the margins are just so enormous. Like, how do you argue that the
Thank God for that.
Right. And that was literally, they should have been much larger, but we'll get to that later. But, same probably the same electoral college results as in 2016, but reversed.
Right.
Plus, a very significant popular vote margin, both in Biden's favor. But the problem also, though, is the 71 million people whom I will never forgive.
Right. Right.
It's very difficult that the vast majority of them, I don't care because they're awful and I will hopefully never come in contact with them. It's the ones
Yeah.
casually, and I know some, you know,
I
who
got family.
who have excuses, and I do too.
Yeah.
I mean,
What
like
excuses?
relatively close family.
What
The
excuses?
well, Democrats were going to win the Senate, and we needed it to be divided. And I was like, I'm not saying they're good ones. I'm just telling
Oh,
you.
Cliff, I
Like
was
for me,
getting
this
the,
is very different.
yeah.
A very difficult intellectual exercise of
Yeah.
how I can. How
I
could
was getting
forgive
the
them.
antibody. I was getting the anti-Biden excuses from. We're talking sane family members who did not. Some were deplorables before, so to speak, meaning they were limbo people. They watched that kind of crazy stuff, Fox News, right? Some were not.
Yeah.
Even from the sane ones, about a month or two ago, I was getting, well, you know, there's that talk of Biden harassing women. And I was like, okay, first of all, it was that one crazy chick who disappeared because they blew up her story. Second, sorry, that's a Chicago word, chick. I threw it in on purpose. Second, the if you're actually worried about sexually
Very
harassing
Vinnie
women,
Barbarino of you, by the way.
I know. If you're really worried about sexually harassing women, you don't vote for Donald Trump because there was a story about Biden you're not sure about, right? Second argument, yeah, but I just feel like he's dishonest. I was like, oh my God.
John, when you hear people say that, and
It's-
I'll let you talk quickly, Mary.
Yeah, no,
then
no,
you
go
know
on.
that they're
That's-
already predisposed to vote for
I
Trump.
think they, but it
If they're
scares
saying
me, Cliff.
Biden, because it's like when I heard
Yeah.
some people say Biden didn't do enough for African Americans. I'm like, okay, stop talking to me.
Oh, I know. But these are non-deplorables. That's what scares me, is we're talking about this slice that's more moderate Republicans who still kind of go, I'm going to vote Republican anyway.
You're right.
I don't know, Mary. I mean, you're the psychologist. What's
Help us. Yeah, help
seriously,
psychoanalyze
like,
our
it's not
crazy
just
country.
deplorable types. Who are these people? I mean,
Well, they're, you know, they have authoritarian personalities. There's
That's
just
what I'm
a lot
thinking.
more of them than I thought there were. And, you know, because you say they're moderate, you say they're sane. I say, all right, let's, not that we should, but just for the sake of this argument, put the misogyny aside, put the racism aside. Either people don't acknowledge it or it's not a deal breaker for them. That's a different issue. How do you put aside the cruelty? How do you put aside the fact that because Donald cannot admit ever that he's wrong, we have in excess of 1,200 people now dying every day from a totally preventable pandemic? What the fuck? Like, how do you get past that?
My younger son is quarantined downstairs.
Because of school.
You know,
Yeah.
and thankfully we're on the 13th day or so it seems like he's out of the woods. But the point being, none of that shit had, you know, that's what, this is the literal argument. And I don't want to cut you off, Mary, but I used with one of these people I knew. I'm like, do you want our kids to go to school in a plexiglass prison for the next 2 years? Like, how do you watch this shit and want more of it?
Yeah.
But go ahead. Sorry, Mary, go ahead.
No, that's exactly my point. If you put aside the things that
Right.
are deal breakers for us, but I
Right.
guess, you know, being a Republican means racism, misogyny, whatever. I'm white, I'm straight, I'm either, you know, a guy, or I've internalized my misogyny to a degree that I don't even recognize and I don't care. The rest of it, I mean, in what universe is it okay? All right, let's say that, you know, the kids at the border, let's say their parents were murderers, which they're not. They were simply seeking asylum. You don't put the kids in prison camps. You know, like, why is that okay? And also, it was the equivalent of a fucking parking ticket. I'm sorry, I'm swearing so much. I'm very angry.
Oh, please do.
And how, you know, the COVID thing is just
Well,
mind-boggling.
COVID, can I ask you real quick? Because COVID, I don't mean to cut you off, but I want you to narrow it down. I was just going to ask you about COVID because, and I think you're right, and I hope people aren't offended, but she's got a point. When you said, you know, put the racism, put the misogyny aside, what we're saying is, okay, you could write off some of these people as racist, sexist pigs who don't care about the other issues. That's what you mean. So at least I understand why they would vote for a racist, sexist pig, because they are ones. Fair enough.
Yeah.
But with COVID, I mean, again, normal family members of mine who we've at least agreed not to fight about it anymore, because I'm not going home for Thanksgiving and Christmas now. I told my mom, she totally gets it. My siblings, I guarantee you they're going to force her into holding Thanksgiving and Christmas.
But your mom's a Republican who voted for Biden, so we love
Who
her.
voted for Biden, and she's 91 years old, which is
wow.
why I'm not going home. And I asked Craig Spencer, who's been on our show, who's one of the docs who's been on CNN a lot. I asked Dr. What's her name? Dr. Megan, who's on CNN a lot too. I forget her name. Glasses, very wonderfully.
John only talks to CNN.
I only talk to
doctors,
CNN
it
doctors, but I was.
I don't watch CNN, sorry.
Oh, okay. I was having a great conversation with her on Twitter just about this very issue, and she was like, "No, there's no way you can go. It's not safe." But so I'll throw it back to you. Like even on the science stuff, how can they explain that?
Well, first of all, I am not absolving any of these people of the racism, misogyny, cruelty, homophobia, anti-immigrant, anti-refugee at all. That is all I need to know about them, in my view.
It explains
it.
Right.
Dismissed entirely out of hand. It's just incredibly depressing that there are so many more of them than I imagined.
Right.
But it is the question then, since that stuff is a given, it didn't bother them last time. Why is it going to bother them now? Why once again are they voting against their self-interest in a very specific way?
Right.
You know, the Republican Party has had this 4 decades long project where they've wanted to make voters more ignorant, delegitimize government,
mainstream news.
I'm sorry?
Delegitimize mainstream news with their whole alternate reality news. Yeah.
And also undermine science when it suits them. Like, it's okay. Like, if you have cancer, you can believe in science. But if the planet's dying, you can't. Or if, pollute, whatever, you know what I'm saying? And it's these things have metastasized and gotten bigger. And to the point now where people aren't just voting against their own self-interest, in the sense that, keeping gay people from having rights is more important to them than letting rich people,
than having healthcare,
pay their fair share, or than having healthcare. Now it's like they're literally willing to put their own lives and their children's lives and their parents' lives at risk. And how does one wrap one's head around that? I mean, is it literally that they just don't believe it? That's true for many, many people. But then you've got people who live in states like New York. I mean, we got hit really, really hard. I live on Long Island, and it was just a brutal nightmare. Made worse because apparently nobody's learned the lessons that
it's been going up again lately in New York, hasn't it?
Everywhere. How could it not? Like, even if we do everything right,
more people are indoors. It's that simple. It gets colder. We're indoors.
And people are coming to New York from other places.
Right.
Like North Dakota, South Dakota, Wisconsin, etc. So it's just, there was this guy at a rally. He was an older person, and his T-shirt, which somebody'd written on, "My son died from COVID-19 and I'm still voting for Donald." All right. Well, if somebody I loved, okay, I can't say what I'm thinking.
I've had that happen a few times where I've had that cross my mind, and I things like that.
Just kidding, NSA.
I know. This is going public. Everyone's going to see it, Mary.
But I mean, look at the fact, and I'm not blaming any groups, at all, because we all own this mistake. And frankly, let me be clear that white, straight, men own it a lot more than anybody else.
But just white, straight women are giving them a run for their money.
Fair enough. But just the fact that Latino men and African American men, his share went up, and it's like
the gays, the LGBT went up as well, Cliff. If the exit polls are correct, LGBT went up too.
And even I'm going to apologize, because even though I don't strongly identify as a Jew, I do come from that original tribe, and I think it was very marginal. But I think this time, instead of 72 or something percent, I think it was Hillary got. I think Biden got 68, and it's enough that even if he ticked up 2 or 3%, what? Because he moved the embassy to frickin' Jerusalem. If you're Jewish, you want instability. You want a guy QAnon theories about how the blood of Christian kids are being that's right out of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, what they say at Q. I don't get it at all.
Well, go back to the fascism thing, Mary, because that's a theory based on no data, just my gut. I have this feeling that there's a wonderful Sylvia Plath poem. I love Sylvia Plath, and one of the lines is "Every woman loves a fascist," and in this case, it seems to be 40% of the population loves a fascist. But I kind of have this feeling that maybe there's something among people generally, and I doubt it's just Americans because we're seeing it worldwide. Maybe there's just a significant chunk, whether it's 40% or whatever, where they really like a strong man. They just do. And it's a man, by the way, probably, unless a woman commits mass murder and can prove herself just as evil. But I suspect it's a man. Why?
Why? Always. Well, okay. First, just to get back to one point Cliff
Yeah.
was making, and I haven't looked at the numbers yet. But we discount the impact of misogyny in this country at our peril. I hoped we would have learned that 4 years ago.
Yeah.
The only reason Hillary Clinton didn't win in an undeniable landslide was because she was a woman. That's it. She lost for a lot of, lost in my view, for a lot of other reasons. But a man with her credentials would have been
Absolutely would have won by 7 million, maybe instead of 3 million votes.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So there's that. So the authoritarian personality is the person who follows the strongman, not the strongman. And I think, and again, this is not my area of expertise, although I will be studying this a lot.
You have a family connection to it, though.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So
sadly, though, I think we all do. Mary's is just
actually that's a funny point.
I can think
Cliff.
of a couple in my family, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah,
Trust me.
Every family loves a fascist. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go on, Mary. Yeah.
No, but it's just playing out that it remains even more true now than it did 4 years ago, that this country is now acting like a macrocosm of my dysfunctional family, your dysfunctional family, and it's terrifying. So we do need to figure that out. So what I would say is I think a lot of weak people who are frustrated for a lot of reasons they're frustrated is because of things the Republican Party has done to them, keeping them economically disadvantaged and stoking their hate at every opportunity.
Right.
But they blame the wrong people, right? Because the only thing they have left at the end of the day is, pride in their white skin or pride in their male gender, right? So, or their straightness.
They need status from somewhere. Yeah.
Right. And that's the only thing that Republicans have left them, quite honestly. Right. So they see somebody like Donald come to power, which is something I still makes me sick, but, and they identify with him because the thing we most need to understand about Donald is that he is extraordinarily weak. So they identify with his weakness because they see that he's overcome it. In the sense that not that he isn't weak, but that he succeeded despite his weakness. It's like poor people who are totally cool with enormously wealthy people not paying their fair share of taxes because they might be rich someday too.
Right.
And then because they're weak, he promises them the world. He continues to stoke their rage. Rage can feel really good. Orwell knew what he was talking about when, I don't know if it's 2 minutes of hate or 3 minutes of hate or whatever. That's all Donald's rallies are. Thank you. How dare I get Orwell wrong?
Hey, you're expanding Orwell to 3, which nowadays maybe we need to expand the 2-minute hate to 3-minute hate.
Well, the rallies are like 2 hours long, and it's just people
2-hour hate. Yeah,
hating on other people and each other because they continue to spread COVID.
But that's a really interesting point. I mean, seriously, it was a joke, but it's not. What is it that turns people? I guess what I'm kind of getting at here is, I'm almost moving beyond this. Initially in 2016, I wasn't convinced that the only thing going on was racism. I'm just not, and I think it was sexism, and it was a lot of other things too. I'm not even convinced still that racism was the number one thing going on in 2016. 2020, he did a much better job stoking racism, but you've got the COVID stuff, like you said. You've got the gender stuff. You've got so many other, and just the 2-hour hate rallies he held. I'm not sure if it mattered who he went after at that rally. He just had to go after people. He went after Gretchen Whitmer, right? I mean, he would go after anybody. I mean, Ali Velshi, although Ali Velshi is a person of color, but he just would go after anybody he could. And I think just hating anybody was almost enough for his followers.
Sure. And also Ali Velshi is Canadian, so let's not forget that.
Kenyan-born Muslim, as Ali likes to point out.
Oh my God.
That maple syrup loving.
Yeah.
Poutine. Oh my goodness. I think a lot of times the people he mentioned are people that the audience had no idea, could not identify, couldn't pick out.
They wouldn't know Ali. Yeah.
So it is just about, oh, this person was mean to me. This person disrespected me. This person, whatever. They're just boogeymen. And I think that the thing that we're really going to have to grapple with more than anything else is what, like, for what, when you cannot for the life of you understand the other person's motives. And this is I think where the territory becomes more dangerous. If it's racism, you can despise it, but you can understand it.
Right.
You can understand the misogyny.
We're able to put them in little boxes where we go, okay, that's what's going on.
Right.
Right.
But how do we deal with this when we are literally living in not two realities, because there's only one reality.
Right.
We're living in a country where half of the people, generally speaking, understand how reality works and understand what it is. And the other half of the country that is all about conspiracy theory. Like, these people believe in QAnon. I mean, there's no reasoning at that point,
Although we're starting to get evidence now that it was, there's just an article in Reuters a little while ago that it was hyped in a massive way. This will shock you, by Russian accounts, is how it grew early in 2017. That the biggest accounts that hyped it were all fake Russian accounts, many of which have been. I mean, there's more will come out on this.
Oh yeah,
but,
Cliff, all the election stuff now. Imagine
it wasn't just all organic. Let's
imagine what the Russians are doing now with all this stuff.
Yeah,
we're gonna at least, thank God, when Biden takes over, we're gonna find out all the bullshit they did, and hopefully somebody stands up. But that
feels a lot like QAnon was a psychological operation against elements of the United States that Russia very much supported. Let's put it that way.
They said they did that same thing with racism last time, and Mark Zuckerberg should be in prison for the rest of his life.
Agreed.
But if you think about it, though, Russia attacked us last time successfully. The United States government, as it's currently constituted, did nothing, keeping the door open. And
please come back.
Right. But in order to cover for that and normalize that, Republican leadership decided that Russians may be not so bad after all.
Right.
So when you start telling the American people these things, they believe you, especially those who voted for you anyway and put their trust in you. So how do you undo that? It's the same thing that's happening now. They're calling the legitimacy of an American election into question for the first time in our history. The damage is incalculable. And regardless of what happens, we're going to be dealing with that for a very long time.
We are.
A significant portion of the population will continue to doubt the legitimacy of American elections.
Right.
It's just.
But also going forward, this is another guardrail. In other words, the Republican Party now is stuck with Trumpism. Whoever their nominee is.
They're stoked with Trumpism too.
Well, they're stoking it. They're stuck with it. They stink of it. Whatever you'd like to say. But in 2024, and even in congressional races now, other races, I expect we're going to regularly see they're going to refuse to concede. And it's going to be a regular thing that if they lose, there is definitively fraud.
Cliff. McSally isn't conceding, they said last night.
Are you kidding? There you go.
No, last night that was the big story. McSally in Arizona has now decided she's no longer conceding.
And this is somebody who swore an oath as an Air Force pilot to the United States of America, McSally, and she's willing to do this. And that's what I'm saying.
Pompeo,
This is going to become a regular thing. That's the damage of this, is that's what we're looking at going forward, is that no election is going to be with a concession and without this controversy.
Right. And, I'm working on a piece right now, and I basically said that Biden comes into this at the base camp of a very, very, very steep mountain. But now he's like, they're putting him at the molten center of the earth, because his job, which was already enormously daunting, has gotten that much harder, because this continued betrayal of the American people is hardening people's erroneous beliefs that there's a problem here.
Right.
So like that, in my view, is one of the things that Donald is determined to do. he can't handle losing, so therefore he needs to delegitimize the person who won. He did that with Ted Cruz after Iowa. Ted
Right.
Cruz cheated. Ted Cruz, whatever.
And now Ted Cruz is defending his lies because
Well.
Ted Cruz is Ted Cruz.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what's worrisome is there's literally not one elected Republican in Congress or in the cabinet. If we think about that.
Right.
So 100% of the Republican Party represents the worst 22 to 28% of us across the board.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, literally, I can think of, maybe 3 Republicans. We all think of the same 3 who Biden might have a chance of working with on anything. And certainly it's far from a guarantee.
In the Senate, you mean, or where, Cliff?
In the Senate. I mean, Murkowski, Romney, and Collins are the only ones where I would say there's even a chance. I mean, maybe a couple other pet issues to certain regions of the, country with a few others, but that's it.
I take Collins off the board. She won, God knows how. She won re-election. She has 6 years before she has to face voters again, and she still could not bring herself unequivocally to congratulate Joe Biden and acknowledge his win.
Actually, that's a really good point. You're right. If anybody, she could have stood up and gone, "Hey, screw it. I'm not gonna suck up to the left, but I'm also not gonna suck up to the right anymore." Yeah.
No, I'm not, and certainly I'm not arguing in favor of actually liking any people.
Oh no, we're
I'm just saying these 3 or 4 people are only terrible as opposed to absolutely fucking complete. I mean, like he's still. I don't think he'll be able to work with them almost ever. But they're the only 3 where I feel like there's any chance on 1% of things. I mean, I don't know.
He's not going away. That's the other problem.
But honestly, Cliff, Republicans hang on to the majority. Those 3, nope, not happening.
Yeah, we have to win those races in Georgia.
Indeed.
I mean, we have to.
Yeah. And if Michael Bloomberg had any integrity, he would just pay a lot of people who are struggling financially to go live in Georgia and register to vote.
I like that idea. Right now, move, register. Georgia.
We could turn Wyoming blue if we did that, because only 5 people live in Wyoming. It wouldn't be that difficult.
Actually, so I know this really well because somebody put out there how LA County, something 22 million votes or something.
Well, there's 10 million people in LA County. It's crazy.
So it couldn't have been 22, but whatever the number was, it was bigger than 8 states or whatever. And what I put out there in response, I was like, I live in Hamilton County, Ohio. It's around Cincinnati. This is the 3rd biggest county in the 7th biggest state. And as of the other day when I did this, 238,000 of us, 57% to 41%, 238,000 of us had voted for Joe Biden. Only 193,000 had voted for Trump in Wyoming, and he got electoral votes for that. So the 3rd biggest county in the 7th biggest state delivered 55,000 more votes to Biden than the entire state of Wyoming delivered to Trump, but Trump got electoral votes for that. That's how fucked we are.
It's awful, and it becomes increasingly obvious with every election because Democrats have won 7 out of the 8 popular votes.
That's about right. Yep.
Yeah, and have appointed only 3 out of the 18 Supreme Court. It's just so the the structural advantages of the Republicans become even starker as the country gets bigger and more diverse, and populated states get even more populated. So, not that we don't know that, but we got to realize that that's a large part of what's fueling this. Again, it's another situation in which anybody but Donald would have conceded and the Republicans would have gone along with it. But there you have Donald having a temper tantrum and
they're still scared of him.
The appease and pushing the envelope, and people are just like, wait a minute, there's nobody to stop him, so let's jump on the bandwagon. And what we also need to keep in mind, Donald is operating right now out of terror and rage.
Right.
He can't acknowledge the terror at all. which makes him even more enraged. You know what makes him
You
more
think the
enraged?
terror is the narcissism that he's humiliated, or is the terror that he's going to go to jail, or both?
Oh, no, it's much darker and deeper. The terror is that he did the one thing his father found absolutely unacceptable and punishable by death, which was to be a loser.
Right.
You know, that's it. And yeah, the other stuff is operative, more at a more conscious level.
Right.
You know, he knows, or he should know, the deal. He's not a total idiot. But you know, what should also worry us is that because it makes him more unpredictable. One of the reasons he's so angry is that the Republican Party fared pretty well in this election, despite all expectations, and despite the fact that they should be voted out of existence. So he can't pretend that the Republican Party dragged him down.
We were talking about this on our show. Go on.
We
This
were.
is funny. Yeah.
Then it makes it even worse for him that
He was
everybody
gonna he was gonna figure out and go, wait a minute, why did they do so well and I didn't? Maybe Mitch McConnell screwed me.
Who does he blame now?
Yeah.
Also,
Right.
you know,
That's a great point.
Mitch.
which means that people like Mitch McConnell have to work even harder
Yeah.
to prove to Donald that he's on their side. I mean, that
Right.
they're on his side
Right.
because they want the Senate seats in Georgia. It's just a mess.
Right.
And it's all because we're dealing with a severely pathological, unfit, incredibly ill human being.
Would you put anything past him, Trump, in terms of his sort of, his psychology? Is it more just a matter of, like we said at the beginning, what he's capable of pulling off, and he may not be able to pull it all off, but otherwise, how far would this guy go if he could?
No, I put nothing past him. He's desperate.
Okay.
He's absolutely desperate. And, as I said, he's desperate for the psychological reasons I discussed, but he's also desperate for, as Cliff pointed out, the practical reasons.
Right.
He's facing prosecution. He can't be pardoned for state crimes. He's facing all of his debt being called in, because if he loses, you think Deutsche Bank isn't going to be like, can you give us our $400 million back, please? So, and what other countries are going to cover for him? Nobody's going to cover.
That's kind of why I've been predicting, and I'll still predict it, which is to me, that people were like, this is a coup. And I'm like, yes, of course he would try that. But to me, the scariest thing about the Defense Department installations of his cronies and his loony people, who are Devin Nunes people, who are Michael Flynn people, traitors. I'm going to call them what they are.
Absolutely.
They're the ones who blocked the Ukraine, tried to hide the Ukraine phone call, blocked the Russia investigation. To me, the worst part of it is he also fired the head of nuclear technology over there. Saudi Arabia has wanted nuclear technology forever, and we know he was trying to get it to them after he was elected the first time. Riyadh's a great landing place, nicer than Moscow if you're going to run out of this country. It's where Idi Amin lived out his years after escaping from justice in Uganda. I mean, there's palaces. There's no hope of them having to stop behaving like they're the palace, the special palace elite, like they behave already.
Yep.
Him and Ivanka and the rest of them. I mean, to me, that's what worries me, is he's going to pass God knows what secrets, pay off his debt, and run off to Riyadh.
Right.
I just did an interview with German TV, and one of the interviewers asked me the question, do you really think he's the most dangerous person in the world? And I explained why. It's a combination of the fact that traditionally the person in the Oval Office has been the most powerful person in the world, coupled with his severe psychopathologies. So yes, that does make him but Vladimir Putin has people killed and Assad has killed. It's like, okay, if your only metric, not that it's an insignificant one, but if your only metric is how many people you've killed, then sure, there are other more dangerous, but if that can't be your only criterion, because we need to look at, by the way, he's now killing over 1,000 people a day too. So, he'll catch up if given the opportunity.
Yeah.
But he is currently the greatest national security threat this country has ever known. And you're right. What's going on at the defense should trouble us, terrify us, because there's no doubt in my mind this guy is going to sell state secrets if it serves his purposes and gets him out of a jam.
Yep.
People are absolutely deluded if they think that he has any interest. I've said this before, if he feels like he's going down, he will take all of us down with him.
Right.
That's it. There's no.
If he thinks he can, you're right. He's obviously has no allegiance to this country. So, I mean, if he thinks he can, if he's going to get out of debt, out of going to prison, all the rest of it by installing his people in this last month, stealing secrets, stealing technology, doing whatever he can, selling it to the highest bidder. I mean, who doesn't think he would do that?
Nobody currently in his inner circle, nobody in his cabinet, they all know.
Mary, how do you, I'm not sure how to phrase this. How do you deal with, how do you confront? What is the best way to respond to somebody with Trump's pathologies? How do you beat someone like that?
Mockery.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Before the election, when it looked like things that normally wouldn't have gained traction because, he's always flooding the zone and people can't pay attention, things started to take hold a little bit. So what I was saying was, pile on, everybody. You got to pile on. And then the other Brilliant Times article about his taxes came out and his behavior at the debates. And, so it did seem like things were starting to have a cumulative effect for the first time in his life, honestly. Right. So that helped, I believe, get Joe Biden elected. And now, I'm not saying don't take him seriously, but take the situation seriously,
right?
Because it is a very serious situation and a very dangerous one. However, he's behaving like a baby who's having a temper tantrum,
right?
And that's how he should be treated.
Jake Tapper referred to it yesterday. He said, "I feel like the Republicans are treating Donald Trump like the 5-year-old whose turtle died." It was beautiful. I was like, "Oh my God!"
What is it with turtles? Because Anderson Cooper was like, he's like
somebody else
said down turtle.
That's true.
Somebody else said that too. That they keep going after turtles. Well, Mitch McConnell's a turtle. That's the
I like turtles. I mean, come on, back off.
Didn't he refer to Trump as like an obese turtle lying on the ground?
Turtle that flipped over and was flailing in the hot sun.
I mean, like the imagery is beautiful, but it's not really fair to turtles.
It's not. Or toddlers or babies or whatever.
5-year-olds
Let's put it this way. He's an immature, pathetic loser.
Well, okay, but devil's advocate, I guess mockery gets to him. Mockery doesn't really help us though, right? Because it just makes him, I'm divided on this. I've always felt from the beginning, we're talking way back, I was thinking of Project Lincoln before Project Lincoln was thinking of Project Lincoln. Back when Trump was elected, I kept thinking there needs to be a project to go after him personally, to make fun of him, to belittle him, just psychological warfare. Now, my idea of psychological warfare was to bring him to rock bottom so he is exposed to so he does so many crazy things nobody can forgive him. Now, clearly, even killing 250,000 Americans isn't enough. So I don't know that works anymore, but the mockery certainly affects him the most. But it doesn't really get us anywhere, does it?
Sure it does.
Makes me feel better, but
if it's sustained, no, I'll tell you why.
Yeah, why?
Okay, so a couple of months before the election, we were saying we need to pile on. The response is, well, isn't that going to make him more dangerous? I'm like, of course it's going to make him more dangerous, but he's dangerous anyway. And the goal is to unhinge him, which yes, makes him more dangerous, but also if he can be exposed in a way that nobody can deny. And I'm just like saying, shows up in the Rose Garden naked and,
we're going to nuke people for real.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Or some people would like that, but naked and I don't know. What do these people hate? Like
reading?
What?
I said reading.
He shows up naked reading Faulkner and or actually poetry, some kind of hippie poetry.
Two roads diverged,
and he's suddenly kind. Like his followers will hate that. So
it was all a dream. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So but seriously though, like if he gets pushed, he is on the brink. He is under more stress than he's ever been, and that's saying something because that was true 2 months ago. It's even more true now. So. Yes, the mockery makes him more dangerous, but he's a trapped animal right now.
Right.
And feels like he's running out of options. So if we keep nudging him past the point of no return, then is it risky? Sure. But we're in an incredibly risky situation right now. And it's the only thing I can think of that could be effective because he's so protected.
Right.
by his enablers and his.
It probably keeps him from in any way. Not that he's any good at it anyhow, but being able to plan anything or whatever because he's so consumed. I mean, if that's what I'm understanding you're saying, Mary, I mean, in a way,
it makes him less effective, Cliff.
Right,
I think.
because he's so consumed with his pathologies, with hatred for whoever's mocking him, with how he feels about himself, which is terrible. That maybe he's even that much less effective. Also acts that much crazier in what he says and does, which frees the mainstream media to be more honest, which they've been over the last 6 months, not nearly where they need to be. People know I'm like a broken record on this, but even CNN, which I know, believe me, I'm like you, Mary, I don't like it either. And I don't watch that stuff most of the time, but I did around the election, and to hear some of these hosts start to sort of say he's lying or he's acting like an obese turtle flailing. I mean, these are things that newscasters would not have said about him a year ago. And they felt like they could be, the crazier he's been, they can be more honest. And so in that way, his being crazy because we mock him helps too.
Yeah. And that happened before the election. He ran a terrible campaign, an abysmally bad campaign. Now, again, that 70 million number is going to haunt me for the rest of my days. But, he's the incumbent. He should not have lost. Or let's put it this way. Between the economy and COVID, obviously that put him at a disadvantage. But if he had campaigned better, who knows what would have happened in Georgia or those closer states. So all he was capable of doing, other than ranting and raving on national television during the two debates, and I'm sorry, but he was ranting and raving during the second one as well. He was just doing it more quietly because he knew there was a mute button. All he could do was go hold rallies and kill people with COVID and act like a total moron. So, we just need more of the same.
If you think about it, and again, go ahead. No,
go Cliff, go. Because I was going to kind of wrap up this segment. Go ahead.
I was going to make a point quickly and just say, even when you think about it, only 3-4 incumbents over the last 100 years have been beaten in an election. And, I've admitted to people before, I worked on some of Joe Biden's ads, which is something as a consultant I didn't talk a lot about because I don't want to ever be the center of things. So just people know that when I'm saying this. Which is I like Biden a lot, and I think he's got an empathy and a lot going for him that would lead people to vote for him. But when compared to the other ones who beat incumbents, you had 3 of maybe the 4 or 5 most gifted orators in public life over the last 100 years who were able to pull it off. FDR, Reagan, and Clinton. You know what I mean? Were the 3 that beat incumbents. And you can't, as much as I love Biden, you can't put him on that level. So the fact is that, it's a pretty big point that Trump lost. I mean, it is hard for an incumbent to lose.
I see what you mean. Because he didn't lose to an Obama rhetorical.
That's what I'm saying. He didn't lose to. Go ahead, Mary.
But I like Biden.
A lot of people, including me, didn't even have in their top 5 during the primary.
Biden. You mean?
So the fact that he got Democrats to rally around.
I forgot. Were you a Warren person or who were you?
Yeah, I was Warren.
Okay.
Totally thrilled to have my vice president be Kamala Harris.
Yes.
But anyway.
Me too.
So, it was an uphill battle because you cannot underestimate the power of incumbency in that bully pulpit. And he squandered it because, not Biden, Donald squandered it because he's not strategic. He is, quite frankly, unintelligent. He's not a total moron. But he's not smart. The tragedy is that the twin crises of COVID and the economy should have made him lose by 300 million votes, not 5. But, there was another thing I wanted to say, but I can't remember what it is. But.
That's okay. That's usually me. Cliff will wait one small point and I'll be like, damn it, I can't remember.
No, I feel guilty the whole rest of the show.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just remembered what it was because it's along the mockery. Have you guys seen the Venn diagram? Presidents who lost after one term, presidents who lost the popular vote, and presidents who were impeached?
Yep.
It's beautiful, yes. He's the only one.
In the center of all 3 of those circles. And that should just be postered everywhere he goes.
What I only because we're getting, and again, happy to keep talking if you got time, but I wanted to ask you and you were asked on one of the shows, but it does get kind of interesting. Like what did you do for a living before this craziness? like what are you going to do next is what I mean. Like what are you thinking?
I'm not going to do anything I was doing. That's for damn sure. I was doing internet marketing. So.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it
seems like the book sold pretty well. You may not have to do much after this if you don't want to.
I want to do a lot, actually. So no, I want to write more.
Reclaim the family name.
I'm sorry?
Reclaim the family name or just change it?
People ask me that, and I mean, at this point, I think they should have to change the name. But to be fair, there are many.
It's my house. You get out.
Now, I think this name is going the way of Hitler, or it should anyway. So I will.
It's Vic Hitler. You're a Seinfeld episode now.
I
remember Vic Hitler, who was the comedian on Seinfeld.
Never watched Seinfeld. So sorry.
Yeah, there was a comedian whose name was Vic Hitler, and it was kind of a problem.
Or there's another one where Elaine's boyfriend had the same name as a serial killer. There's that too.
Yeah, it's really not that hard to change your name. Just ask anybody. Most women who get married, it's a pretty simple process. There's a lot of stuff that I'm thinking.
I mean, it's okay. You don't have to say anything, but I mean, you've already got things going on in your head of what you think is happening. Yeah. Okay.
Listen, our work here is far from done. So if I can be relevant, and helpful, I'm actually going to be doing a fundraiser for Maya Wiley, who will hopefully be my next mayor. New York.
Oh, great.
So stuff like that.
Right. And he's not going away. I mean, by the way, until he dies, he's never going away.
Prison would be my.
Well, prison would help, but I mean, yeah. But no, but you know what I'm saying, though? I mean, until
do they take away Twitter in prison?
It depends.
I'm asking. I don't know.
Yeah.
He's a white. Well, he's not going to be rich, but he's white.
He'll be in gourmet prison. Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. But, house arrest.
But honestly, assuming all goes well and Joe Biden is our president, I don't want to talk about Donald anymore. I would like not.
I don't think he's going away, though. But I don't think he's going away. Really? I don't think you'll have a choice. I think he's going to set up shop somewhere. He's going to keep the graft going, and he's going to make as much money as he can off of selling, Donald, who's still president. He's going to be tweeting every day. He's still going to scare the bejesus out of Republicans because he's got his grassroots. I feel like he's almost not neutered. Sorry?
I have a choice. I'd like to move on.
No, you do. I know that. I just meant, you know what I'm saying?
I just mean move on from talking about him all the time. We will probably, unfortunately, not be able to move on from him entirely.
Yeah.
But, again, that depends a lot on what happens, and it depends on how useful the Republicans find him. As soon as they find him not useful,
right,
and indeed may be harmful to them, they're going to cut him loose.
Right.
Also, two of his sort of, probably his two most effective platforms. I saw you tweeted about this, John. I mean, Twitter is going to treat his account like any other once he's no longer president, which means
he's starting to, right?
Right. So it can be suspended, and it can actually be taken away for life. How long do we think that'll happen? It'll take for that to happen with how much he'll lie. And for whatever reasons, and people can guess or whatever, Rupert Murdoch is one of the few conservatives who decided he was done with him. And the other big platform for him is the Fox and Friends weekly segment or whatever. And maybe Rupert will pull the plug on that. So I'm not saying he won't have ways to get out there, but maybe the most mainstream ways he has to get out there now will be taken, and we'll have to hear less from him, which would be really nice.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's
I'm hoping
a possibility. I mean, the New York Post headline or front page was very telling in my view. I can't remember exactly what it said, but it admitted that Biden won the election.
Right.
So I think if prison is not in Donald's future, the second best thing would be irrelevant.
Twitter prison would be the second best thing.
I think irrelevance would actually be the second best thing. Which Twitter prison would help towards that end, and just let him become this sad, pathetic, poor, old white guy spouting conspiracy theories. Easy for me to say. Conspiracy theories. To his ever dwindling crowd of supporters.
Right.
Yep. That would be kind of a fun end. He can go live in one of those communities that he hates,
right,
where all the people love him.
Because Mary, I told you this last time after we had you on that I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about sort of just being gay, because no one that I've seen has really gotten into that into the interviews. I'm gay as well, so it kind of interests me. But Cliff, did you have anything else on the Donald angle that you wanted to ask before we segue real quick? Just a couple minutes.
Thanking Mary for all she did. That's all I've got left.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, so Mary, when did you come out to yourself and then like to the family?
I didn't really. It's one of those.
Well, I'm just wondering. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it just sort of was like, okay, this is the way it is. I never came out to my dad's family because they had absolutely no interest in my personal life at all, ever.
Right.
And when my grandmother called Elton John a faggot, I thought that perhaps it wasn't worth.
This is Donald's mother, you mean?
Yes, yeah. Donald's mother. Yes, my
that was into that
adorable grandmother.
One with that large beehive thing going on.
Yeah, the apple tree falling.
Yeah,
yeah. She was a horrible human being, not surprisingly. So it just wasn't, it wasn't worth it to me. And I was in a relationship. We moved in together, and we'd been friends. So my mom knew her, and I just one night I was like, "Mom, this is the way it is." So,
right. And mom was cool.
Yeah, but honestly, it wasn't bravery. It was, I think what it was my not wanting to have a conversation. So, okay. And shutting down all communication.
Right.
So it's not a particularly interesting story.
Yeah. When do you think that the Trumps found out? Just in the last couple of years, or have you always been?
Let's see. I'm not really sure when they found out, but my Aunt Marianne knew.
She's the judge, I think.
She's the former judge.
Yes. Okay. Oh, she's former. I didn't realize. Okay.
Judge. She and I not reestablished because we never really had a relationship. We developed a relationship after we saw each other at Ivanka's wedding, and it took a long time, but she was totally cool that she considers herself a gay icon, which is fascinating. But she's really racist and misogynistic, but apparently is cool with gay people.
All right. Yeah.
She's one for three.
Right. Yeah. So the other ones never. Well, you never talked to them anyway. You never talked to Ivanka or Don Jr. No. You never really dealt with them anyway, right?
I didn't even talk to them when I was at the White House in 2017.
Were there never even family gatherings, or they just split with your? I remember you talked about this last time, but they just split with your family entirely when that whole inheritance bullshit went down.
Well, that pretty much is what happens when you sue people.
Yeah. Well, okay, fair enough. Yeah.
It tends to make people less friendly. Sure.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but your cousins and you know what I mean? I can, in my extended family, I could imagine having a falling out and over 20 years you work it out because you're family, but that's like my sane family.
Well, I did that with Marianne until I couldn't do it anymore.
No, you had released, was it you, I believe, that released the tapes of Marianne talking about Donald. What led to that? Have you talked, only because you said you had sort of the rapprochement with her and everything.
Yeah, well, it took a few years, but she and I actually developed a pretty close relationship, which just goes to show you how insane families can be, because they treated my dad horribly, they treated me horribly, my mother, my brother, my nephew, So the fact that I was willing to overlook all of that just, I guess, shows how desperate one can be for family sometimes. So, because I lost my whole family, not that we were close, but all of them. So we worked really hard at it, and we would see each other, once a month. We'd talk on the phone, we'd go out for lunch, or I'd go to her place and we'd spend hours. Right. I'd be there for 4 hours sometimes.
Right.
And, but then she started talking about, it's personal, but she started talking about something that I found that made me realize that I was completely deluding myself, that she was ever going to be a decent human being.
Okay.
And she also started telling some stories that she had been asked about in her depositions during the lawsuit, and she was telling different versions of them. So I suddenly realized that she'd lied a lot in those depositions when she was a federal judge.
And to hurt your family, to hurt your dad.
No, to hurt me.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, to hurt you. Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Estate. So, she was lying about stuff in deposition. So, and this was, I think, after the New York Times article came out, and I decided to write the book. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to cover my ass. I had no intention of releasing these tapes publicly at all.
Right.
Because until the very end, like I didn't want to hurt her. But then she started saying things that were so beyond the pale. And I felt like, you know what? When I wrote the book, I decided to lay it out on the table. That's not
Right.
enough. Nothing's ever enough. So if I have some more ammunition and I don't use it, I will regret it forever
Right.
if Donald doesn't lose. So I was like, you know what? I have to. I'm not proud of it. I made me really, really uncomfortable. But and I completely understand why people would question my motives and would think less of me. I get that entirely. But it's sort of like with the book. I felt like I didn't have a choice. There was too much at stake.
And I kind of understand why you would do what you did, because again, like when you're staring this man being reelected in the face, sometimes you do things you wouldn't otherwise do.
Right.
It
And
makes
And wrestling with it is a sign that you're a good person, because I hope people do wrestle with things like that. I mean, you shouldn't just do it unless you weigh it and say, you know what,
Right.
you know, that's a good thing that you're thinking that way, I think. But
Yeah. I mean, it's
No.
better than the alternative. That's
yeah,
for
which is
Right.
like, yeah, let's screw people, which
I know.
would be your uncle.
sure. Exactly.
You
I was
know.
found under a rock, so that's
God.
also the good.
But you know, it's funny, and I mean, we can wrap up. But I was just curious: do people recognize you now when you go out?
I have no idea because I wear 3 masks and sunglasses.
Okay, fair
Awesome.
enough. You're like Jackie O with a mask. Oh, that's
Yeah,
funny.
I am terrified of COVID-19. I have asthma, I have chronic bronchitis, I have had pneumonia, and I don't trust people either at this point. You know, as I said earlier, it was March and April were some of the worst weeks I've ever lived through. It was
Yeah.
sheer terror at every turn. So yeah, so that's like the only good thing is that I get to wear a mask so people don't recognize. I don't really go anywhere anyway, quite honestly.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, going to the grocery store, whatever, if you didn't have a mask, I'd be curious now if people were recognize. I would think in New York, especially, they'd recognize you now.
Yeah. I mean, I'm on
know.
Cape Cod right now, but sure. Like if I pay with a credit card and somebody looks at my name, yeah, generally speaking, they'll.
But are you still going to give? You mentioned before when we interviewed, you said, "Yeah, I always tell them, oh, I'm not connected to them." Would you do it now?
I don't think I can get away with that anymore.
Well, they might not recognize you. It's possible.
Well, actually, that's true. I was at the cable place, and the woman who was helping me, so you know, I had to give her my name. It's like, "Oh, are you related?" And I'm like, "Nope."
God damn it. Well, what do you say? Give it going.
Popular name.
No.
That's it.
Right? Yeah, very common name.
Although they probably wouldn't believe it. Wait, well, or they'd believe you. Hey, maybe you get free cable out of it. Will you lower my price for 12 months? Oh God. Well, really, you've blossomed into this work, I will say. No, you have though. I remember the first couple times seeing you on TV and stuff. I think you were a little more closed, a little more, I would almost say nervous and scared. I don't mean to use negatives, but
It was terrifying.
oh, okay, you were then.
Oh.
Look at you. I could tell you. No, but
You're going on TV and you are taking on the president of the United States. It's a little intimidating.
And talking about your family. No, I mean, but I.
And
yeah.
also remember, the other thing is the first couple of interviews were in studio, and I
Were they?
was hugely panicked. This is the first time I'd been anywhere
Yeah.
without a mask or around
This is
people
easier.
without a mask. I was completely freaked out by that.
Yeah.
And you know, I just wasn't feeling particularly.
Were you in studio with the people themselves, or were
My
you long?
basement for
You,
2
were you in?
months.
I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. Were you in studio with the actual anchors themselves, or were you long
I was
distance?
in studio with the anchor once, and with
Okay.
my first Rachel Maddow interview, I was in a little room by myself, which
That's
was
harder.
It was a dark, freezing cold room. I
Yeah.
was looking at a red light, could not see
Yeah.
her,
Yeah.
and you know,
Yeah.
you guys have been on TV.
We've done the TV
Yeah, it's a
before.
lot
It's the
harder.
weirdest feeling in the world.
Yeah.
You get better at it, but even
Yeah.
now, like on CNN, it's a black screen,
Yeah.
so you can't see anything except
Yeah.
the green light, and you learn. You train.
I
yourself.
always found those
Yeah.
the most disconcerting. Like it's one thing
Yeah.
when you're in the studio talking to people sitting next to you, but when you're looking at
Yeah.
basically, as you said, a light on a camera, I mean, you feel almost like you could be in a room by yourself. It's hard to sort of remind yourself that this is going out to the world and you'd better.
Exactly. And with that Mano interview, I sat in that room. It was cold and really dark by myself for half an hour because they're having all sorts of technical difficulties. So by the time the interview started, I was like, oh my God, I want to get out of here. This is
Yeah.
awful.
That's the other fun of the whole thing people don't get who've never done that before, which is like it's a 4-hour process for like a 5-minute interview.
Which
if
is
you're lucky.
why, yeah, after that, I was like, I'm not leaving home. Everybody else is Zooming. I can Zoom too.
Yeah.
I can Skype. No
Yep.
point.
Yep.
And it was just, I mean, as you now know, it's easier. It's much less time consuming. It's more comfortable. It's easier to be relaxed. And, you know, I don't see that changing anytime soon because we're on fire again.
Because your uncle screwed everything up. So,
Yeah.
murderer. Well, no,
Yeah.
okay, this is great. Thanks, Mary. I don't know. I don't really have anything else. I'm sure we're missing something, but you know,
Meh.
I think ending on "he's a murderer" is a pretty good place.
It's true. I don't think we're going to get much more of a sort of a climax to the episode than that. I think we're at our best.
maybe that'll be our title. Barry Trump. He's a murderer.
Briefly singularity, yes.
And we laugh, but what do you do?
Well, exactly. What the alternative is too depressing.
God.
Well, guys, this was great. I love talking to both of
Lovely
you.
as always.
Well, we
All
love
right.
talking to you too. Thanks so much for everything, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks,
Yeah, stay
Mary.
in touch.
Bye.
Absolutely, we'll be in touch. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, I love her.
Yeah,
Oh, God.
she's awesome.
She really is. I mean, I guess the point about the earlier show was I wasn't sure when I first saw her on TV if she was nervous and scared or whether she was like this very severe, tight person. And I thought, God, maybe she's just a very severe person. She's not a severe person.
No, I just remember,
Not at all.
I still remember, even though I can barely remember what the channel was and whatever, I remember the feeling those first few times I went on TV. I mean, it's a pretty scary thing when you haven't done it before.
Yeah.
It's like, it's one of those things. The more you do it, it becomes natural, but
All right. Well, let's wrap this up. I don't know. Is it worth getting in? I mean, it's already been an hour and 10 minutes. Let's not get into the other stuff. We'll do. I think we're going to have to do a show at the end of the week anyway, because there's been a lot just happening on the coup front. And even though we talked about it here, it might be good to then just sort of digest where we are.
Yeah,
maybe Friday if we've got time. I mean, maybe Friday if that day works. But okay, guys, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll see you in a couple days.
Take care.
Bye-bye.